Ericsson, PRF, and again in ECI in various capacity. Currently, he is working as a solution architect at ECI and mainly handle Africa continent. His multifaceted personality. He became Mr. LDC while studying at LD College of Engineering. He's not only write technical article on his blog, but he's a professional shire and writes shairis in with a pen name Zalzala. It is always privilege for any teacher to listen and learn from his student. Today, three of your faculty are there, and many will join. Kalyan, Kiran sir, and me. But today I left your lecture in between. I have to go to co-institute, so I will half lecture I will attend and then I will go.
Yes, sir.
So I also welcome all the participants and faculty of various colleges. Let's start. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. Mihir sir, thank you so much. Kinnar sir, thank you so much. And Kiran sir, thank you so much for joining. Taking your blessings, I would like to start the session today. It is based on last mile access, or which is, in a very simple words, it is called as GPON, which is Gigabit Passive Optical Networking. As I told in my first session, that there are three parts in telecom. One is the core network, one is the transmission network, and one is the last mile access. Now today we are going to study a very specific part of last mile access, which is based on fixed access. It is not wireless, but it is based on fixed access. So I'll just share my screen. Give me like 2 seconds. Yes, we can see this. Okay, and now present now. Window, and here we are. Okay, just tell me if you can see these slides and we will go ahead.
Yes, we can see.
All right, sir. So we are going to study about last mile fixed access using PON, which is passive optical networking. Let me make you clear that an active component is generally a component that is taking power and is doing a kind of signal processing and amplification. Whereas a passive component is generally not taking any power. It is functioning as a splitter or a coupler. Having said that, in a GPON network, there are active components also. So the word passive may be a bit misleading over here, because the passive part is only in the splitter. So please understand that a GPON network will consist of active parts as well as passive parts. Just like the DWDM had. DWDM also had passive parts like splitter, coupler, OADM, etc. The GPON will also have passive parts as splitter, coupler, MDF, and so on. So we'll go ahead on this. So first of all, as I'm telling, GPON is a passive network solution. Why? Because the splits are in passive form. Secondly, it is an asymmetric kind of a traffic. So when I say asymmetric, it means that the upload speed and the download speed is not the same. In GPON specifically, the download speed, the gigabit passive optical network, GPON, the download speed is actually 2.5 Gbps per port, while the upload speed is 1.25 Gbps. So therefore, the uplink speed is lower than the downlink speed, and that is why it is called asymmetric. Even if you see ADSL is also asymmetric digital subscriber line, where the download speed is greater than the upload speed. So GPON is actually a fiber form of ADSL. Like in ADSL, you have everything in copper. In GPON, you have everything in fiber. It requires an elaborate fiber network. So therefore, the biggest cost in building a GPON network is taking the fiber to the premise, or taking the fiber to the home, or taking the fiber more deep into the network. Generally, if you want to start up a mobile company or a mobile provider, then you need to provide the fiber access to the cell sites, and the last mile access is actually wireless. But in case of GPON, the last mile access is also wired and it is fiber. Therefore, the initial entry cost of laying out a GPON network is very, very high. But still, many Indian operators do that. Not only big operators, but also small operators. And I will tell that to you as we go ahead in the session. Let's understand what are the components of a GPON network. So we understand that the core part of the network and the aggregate part of the network is well defined. So a GPON network generally has a central office, and there it has a network element called as the OLT, or optical line terminal. This is actually the point where the signal is either coming in Ethernet format or it is coming in TDM format. Basically, the signal is coming in native format from the origin. And this GPON OLT is further taking it through a fiber, and then it goes to a feeder network, which consists of splitters. So one particular port, one particular access port of GPON towards the user can be split into 32 users or 64 users based on the class of the laser. So if it is a GPON B class laser, it can go to 32 ports. If it is a C class laser, it can go to 64 ports. Nowadays, in the present advancement, even a split of 128 is possible in case of GPON C plus. So therefore, you are seeing that one particular port from the GPON OLT is having a potential to cater 64 users in different parts. So therefore, the split ratio and the spread is very, very high. But the fiber network that has to be laid is very, very elaborate over here. The last part of the equipment, the last part of the network, which actually is terminating to the user, is called as ONU. This is called as optical network unit. So please remember these two words. OLT is at the central office, and ONU, which is optical network unit, is at the customer premises or at the last point. The ONU is also sometimes vaguely or also sometimes commonly called as ONT. So therefore, if you are asking for ONU or ONT, it is one of the same thing. ONT stands for optical network terminal. That is where the PON network terminates. So it is called optical network terminal. So ONU, ONT, splitter, which is a passive object, and GPON OLT. Now please understand, there is a very important thing to understand, that splitter works on the principle of split horizon. Now if you have read in Tannenbaum, there is a concept called split horizon. Split horizon has a very complicated definition in our book, but the main essence of split horizon is that any traffic that is coming on this port in this direction will not go back on this port, will only go in the forward direction on other ports, any port but on but in itself, which means in a very simple word that यहां से जो आ रहा है वो यहां से वापस नहीं जाएगा, वो या तो ये यहां पे जाएगा, यहां पे जाएगा, यहां पे जाएगा. But if that is to be considered, then any traffic that comes from here, from say ONU1, has a potential with respect to the split horizon definition to also go to the OLT and to go to the GPON ONU2, ONU3 from the splitter itself. Now here is where we have the concept of split horizon group, where all the access ports of the splitter are bundled in one split horizon group, which means that the traffic that comes from an ONU will never bypass to any other ONU, but will only terminate at the OLT. That is why it is called optical line termination. The distance that a GPON feeder network can cover up till today, that I have seen, and it's a norm in the industry, is 20 kilometers only. Why? Because you have got fiber lasers, but this laser power, as you split, is also split into equal ratios. So if I am getting, say, a plus 3 dB power from here, and I split it into, say, 64 parts, the laser power will be equally split, and what you will see is a considerable level of attenuation in your feeder network. Therefore, the maximum recommended distance from the GPON OLT to the user, or the last point, is considered to be 20 kilometers only. Now, in this presentation, as we will see MDUs and multi-dwelling units, we will see how we can increase this, and we can go a bit farther. Okay, so let us talk about the central office. As I said, it is a line terminator. So you will have a device called as the OLT, which we will see in detail in the next slides. But this is just a block diagram. You see that the OLT is taking feed from the content providers. So say, there is a cable operator, he is having an OLT, he is taking some kind of a feed from the private branch exchange or from the government exchange of voice on a particular VLAN over here. SBC stands for Session Border Controller. Why Session Border Controller? Because most of the voice now is traveling on packet. It is no more traveling on Ethernet, traditional PSTN lines. So therefore, instead of terminating it directly to a PSTN exchange, it is terminated on a SBC, which is Session Border Controller, which is responsible for the transcoding of the voice and riding the voice over an IP network. So this interface that you see is an Ethernet interface, or an optical Ethernet interface that comes from the exchange to the OLT. In another VLAN, it can have a connection to the internet. So this line is also Ethernet, and it can go to an internet service provider or an internet gateway based on what is the nature of the person providing you the GPON. Then there can be another termination that can go to the CATV content server. So here he can have an IPTV service or a managed content service or a CATV service terminating to the different transponders of a CATV network that will send him television channels through this point. On the right side that you see are PON ports, or passive optical networking ports. Each port has a potential to carry 64 customers, and they can carry all the VLANs. So all these VLANs are aggregated and carried on each of the ports. But each of the ports can be split into another 64 parts. And we will see this in the next slide how. Now, at the customer end, what happens? There is a ONU. Okay, you can see an ONU. This is the optical network unit. From the splitter, only one core fiber is coming in and terminating on the ONU. And on the ONU, on different ports, you can have different VLANs that can be stripped off. You can have a PPPoE service with a particular VLAN catering to the internet and stripping it off at the wireless port and on the wireline port. You can have an analog RJ11 port stripping in the VLAN coming from the SBC, and you can connect it to the analog phone. You can also connect an IP phone, depending on what your voice service provider is going to give you. So this can be an FE RJ45, and you can terminate the VLAN of SBC on this. You can have a coax cable output from the ONU. So you can see this ONU is very multifarious, as Mir sir says, multi-purpose and multifarious, like me. So this ONU is something like, it can take trunk VLAN from the splitter end, and it can segregate it into Wi-Fi service, into IP phone service, into analog phone service. You can connect a coax cable down here to a set-top box and give it through your HDMI port to your television. You can also connect an RJ45 to an access switch, from which you can get wired internet access, as well as you can connect this port to your smart TV or Android TV. So basically, as the signal is coming to the ONU, what the ONU is doing, it is stripping off the PON from the signal, and it is segregating the signal to its destined peripherals by dropping the VLANs at those ports. On the OLT is combining these in terms of VLANs, and the on the ONU, it is segregating the VLANs into different ports. Now, if you simplify this, you will see that different services like, cable TV or voice or IP telephony or internet or OTT are all having different kind of VLANs, and these particular VLANs are dropped at separate ports at the ONU level. This is the key part of GPON networking that you should know. Whenever anybody is going to ask you about, how do you envision a GPON network, these are the three components that you have to be very careful about, and you have to be very clear about that. There is an OLT which aggregates the services in a layer 2 format or in a layer 3 format. Then there is a feeder network that distributes the services, and then there is a ONU that terminates and segregates the services into different kind of peripherals. Let's go ahead. Now, it is not always economical to drive the fiber straight to your home, because fiber is expensive. The rate of laying fiber in India for 1 kilometer is 2.5 lakhs. So you understand, laying 20 kilometers of fiber, and that too in a diverse fashion, may even take crores of rupees. So therefore, it is not always possible in a very dense area to deploy fiber in each and every house. Also, fiber to the home service, that is when fiber is coming to your house altogether, is very, very expensive in nature. If you compare the rates of Geo Fiber, which is there with you, to a common ISP like GTPL, you will always find that Geo Fiber is higher. Why? Because Geo Fiber is giving you this concept of bringing fiber to your home and then installing an ONU and having all kinds of facilities over there. You have an IP phone, you have an RJ11 connectivity, you have Geo TV on the set-top box, you can also have OTT, internet TV on your television, you can have wired access, you can have home automation, you can have home surveillance, everything on Geo Fiber. But then not all of us need that. Our main attitude of India is, you go to an ISP and take internet, you go to a mobile operator and take phone. In that case, what is needed more is a multi-dwelling unit, MDU. Now this MDU is not having variety of service for one user, but it has the capability of giving one service to multiple user from a single termination point. So imagine that there is a building with 60-70 flats inside it, and everybody wants internet. So one line from the OLT terminates at a point called as MDU. Now this MDU has got several Ethernet access ports, generally 24, 48 access ports, and each of these access port through a copper wire can go to a customer premise equipment or CPE. We call it CPE. Generally, what you have in your house as a Wi-Fi router, Wi-Fi router is a CPE. So what is happening? The signal is coming from the content provider to the OLT. OLT, it is aggregating. It is coming to the MDU, and in the MDU, it is being split, not split actually, it is being dropped as VLANs in all these ports. One of these ports or all of these ports are going to a CPE, and you can see the service is of one kind, that is only internet, because you cannot drop more than one VLAN on one port at an access level. Then this has to be a trunk port to take more VLANs, and then you can have an ONU over here. But that is not the case that we have. We have only one service, which is internet, and internet is coming through a particular VLAN. It is coming through the core of fiber, then it is getting dropped at all these ports. So these ports are connected to a CPE, which can be a Wi-Fi router. Typically, you can connect directly to your Android television using a wire. You can connect to a wired PC using an RJ45, and on the other hand, you can also have a Wi-Fi connectivity of all your Android phones, tablets, iPhones, etc. to your CPE. So this is the concept of MDU. And in India, by the way, wherever you see fiber to the building or fiber to the curb, MDU is the biggest kind of deployment that we have in India. We have very rarely got a deployment of FTTH. Most of the time, the deployment is fiber to the building or fiber to the curb. Curb as in, you understand, a society say in Naranpura of row houses, or society say in Thaltej of row houses. Now here the per user revenue is, you cannot expect a users over here to pay like 10,000 rupees a month or 3,000 rupees a month. You are expecting a revenue say of 500 rupees a month or 1,000 rupees a month maximum, having a good broadband speed. So there, what happens, at a particular junction box, you will see an MDU that terminates the fiber. From the MDU, you will see several lines coming out. Now, it can also be so that this particular line that you are seeing coming out can terminate on a switch, and this switch can spread across. But most of the time, what happens for high-speed access, each MDU port is taken on a copper wire and connected to the user premise, and user is connecting a router over there, or his own laptop or any device over there. Okay, is this part clear? OLT, ONU, and MDU, which is very important. This is what you need to understand in clarity. If it is not clear, please interrupt me. You can ask me questions on this. Now we go to the next slide that shows the comparison in between MDU and ONU. Now, as you see, ONU is when fiber is brought to the home. ONU is expensive. Now, the entire technology, the ONU is not expensive, but to get services as FTTH is more expensive. On the other side, it has multiple services carriage capability, because here you have several segregation ports, and the PON port is a trunk port in a ONU. It has got capacity and variety. At any point of time, an ONU can be connected to a splitter or directly to a PON port, taking a full 2.5 gigs, and it can have variety and capacity both. It can also work from a splitter network. So generally, MDUs are not connected to a splitter. But in India, you can say they are done at times, because India is a country of glorious uncertainties. So they do at times, but generally MDU is not connected to a splitter. One particular MDU is connected directly to a PON port, where it is getting a direct downstream of 2.5 Gbps. You also need to understand, and this I'll explain in the next slide, that as the service splits in a splitter, this 2.5 gigs of downstream bandwidth also gets splitted. So if you are doing a 1:10 split, then you will have each user committed to 250 Mbps of bandwidth, and like that you will get 2.5 gigs. Like that, if you make around 64 split, you can go up to like 10 Mbps or something as 75 Mbps of bandwidth or something like that. So this you need to understand that when splitting is done, bandwidth is also split and power is also split. On the other side, if you see MDU, this is deployed when fiber is not coming to the premise. It is relatively economical and thus a very favored way of deployment in India. Generally, all the ISPs are having this kind of a deployment. In Gujarat, you have GTPL. In Mumbai, you have Dolphin. You have Intech. You have Microscan. In Hyderabad, you have ACT. By the way, in ACT, there are two kinds of deployment. You also have FTTH, where fiber is coming to the home. It is termed as ACT FiberNet, and you also have ACT Broadband, which is more of a MDU kind of a deployment. There are very, very few cases where you will find deployment of FTTH in India very, very successful, because India is relatively a dense country in the urban area. The rural area cannot afford the expense of a fiber. In urban area, it is so dense that the cost of laying fiber in each and every area becomes very, very high. Therefore, MDU kind of a deployment in India is very, very rampant and very, very easy to do. There are some ONU kind of a deployment or FTTH kind of a deployment, and I will tell you in the last part of the presentation how it is. Okay, but then why we need GPON? The most important point, why we need GPON? Because GPON is multi-carrier. Because if you imagine that if I have to have so many services at my home, say landline phone, IP phone, cable TV, internet, then imagine the number of access I have to give to several vendors coming to my house. So one wire is coming in for cable TV, one wire is coming in for IP phone, one wire is coming in for landline phone, one wire is coming in for internet. Instead of that, I can do a GPON FTTH, and I can just take one fiber and then segregate it at my own points. It is simple. First of all, you have to understand of all telecom architectures that you see. You see DWDM, you see MPLS, you see Ethernet, you see routing network, you see layer 2 connectivity, layer 3 connectivity, metro Ethernet, voice telephony. Of all these technologies, wireless voice, GPON is the simplest kind of a thing. And this is the most easiest kind of a network deployment that you can have, because at the user end you are not looking towards a ring architecture, you're not looking towards a reliable kind of a protected network. It can be star shaped and something like that. Secondly, it can be scalable. So because you have a split network, you already have a feeder and network in place, adding users is not difficult, as it is in case of say DWDM network at the core level. Then it has different flavors, depending on the usage. I gave you two flavors. One is FTTH, one is FTTB, where you have the MDU and where you have the ONU. But there can be several permutations and combinations you can do through an ONU. You can have an ONU going to 4 different CPs. You can have MDUs going to more electrical ONUs or something like that. So there are several permutation combination that you can do in order to entertain many users in your network. So there can be a mix and match of services that you can give. Now let's understand how does a splitter splits the bandwidth. Okay, as I told you, splitter not only splits power, it is passive in nature. it also splits the bandwidth. So when you talk about an optical splitter in a 1:8, you have to understand it takes one input from the OLT-PON port, and it splits it into eight splits. Now, if the downstream is 2.5 Gbps, each split will have a downstream of how much? It will have a downstream of 300 Mbps and an upstream of 150 Mbps. Bandwidth also divides when there is an optical splitting happening in the feeder network or in the distribution network, and that is why you have different bandwidth commitments for different places depending on the number of splits that it has. You can also do the splitting in cascade. It is sometimes not possible to have a splitter which is having all 32 ports, or it is a 1:32 split at level 1 or 1:64 split at level 1, because then the splitter becomes very, very costly and you do not need to do the split at the first level. So here, as you are seeing, that there can be subsequent cascades. So I am first splitting the PON port to 1:8, and then I am splitting each split port to 1:4. Effectively, what I am trying to do is, I am trying my end delivery, the downstream is 75 Mbps and the upstream is 37 Mbps, which is quite okay for an user. Okay, but I am trying to demarcate the downstream and the upstream in such way. However, this is not possible to be done if your committed bandwidth ratios are exceeding more than 75 Mbps. Then you have to consider a 1:2 split over here. So you can split one PON port in 16 parts. So each user will have around 150 Mbps or so. We will also see this in detail, how bandwidth is engineered using QoS, but this is what you need to remember, that the split ratio is defined on the basis of how much is the committed bandwidth that you are going to give, or maximum bandwidth you are give to a particular user. Like today he might have bought 10 Mbps bandwidth, so this split is fine, but by this he can grow only to a limit of 75 Mbps. Moment he starts buying, say, 300 Mbps bandwidth from you, or say 150 Mbps bandwidth for you, or 100 Mbps bandwidth from you, then you have to reconsider the split that you have done. Therefore, you need to understand that you always engineer the split network as to the maximum possible you can give to a user. Okay. Now we go to the next slide.
Kalyan, there was a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
This optical splitter is doing splitting on bandwidth in passive domain?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There is no active component involved in the optical splitter, but what is happening, the split is also happening in case of bandwidth and in case of power. Because this is working on, I'll tell you, if you have heard about arrayed mirror, it is working on the principle of arrayed mirror, where it can also split the bandwidth. So therefore, in any GPON network, see, because ultimately the amount of bandwidth that this port can have, the OLT port can have, is 2.5 Gbps. Now this 2.5 Gbps, if you want to distribute across 100 users, you have to make 100 splits. But the committed bandwidth, or the maximum bandwidth that each and every user can go, is 2.5 divided by 100. It is like that.
Okay, it would be interesting to identify how this is done, and
all right,
actually packets are being distributed in a way they are splitted.
So generally, I'll tell you, a splitter is a broadcast domain. The only thing is that the line rate is reduced in each of these splits. It is not like a switch where you have 1 gig in and several 1 gigs out. There is no packet replication over here. Understand this.
Yeah, that
Because
is true. But see,
for packet replication, you need to have an active domain. Yes, sir.
fine. It would be interesting to have more look into this. I will do it later. You can continue.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Okay. Advantages of a split. An OLT which says 16 pawn ports can serve 1024 customers in that area. Each customer having a downstream bandwidth of 37 Mbps. So 16 pawn ports serving each port serving 64 customers. Okay. Or each port uh, serving 64 customers having a downstream bandwidth of 37 Mbps. Why? Because 2.5 gigs divided by 64 is 37 Mbps, and an upstream bandwidth of 18.5 Mbps. Enough. This bandwidth is enough to run a quad play service. It is enough to run a quad play service. Each pawn port of the OLT can reach 64 customers with better bandwidth planning for low cost services. So if you do better bandwidth planning, somewhere you give a cascaded 2 split, somewhere you give cascaded 4 split, you can actually have good amount of user densities that you want to take. Now let's understand what are the types of OLT, and this is where we are going to see actual pictures of how OLTs look like. Okay, so there are two kinds of OLTs. One is a chassis based OLT and one is a standalone OLT. Now a chassis based OLT is generally a kind, it will be a kind of a cupboard or a chassis kind of a thing where you can put several modules. You can put line card modules, you can put trip card modules and things like that. And a standalone OLT is kind of a pizza box. Now I understand that this terminology pizza box is not you are not conversant with it. So in the language of telecom, a pizza box is a kind of a device which does not have any removable modules. Generally you will see that there is one chassis and there are many modules that you can plug into it. A pizza box is having a non-modular architecture. It has got a fixed architecture. So there's a standalone ONT and a chassis based ONT. Chassis based ONT generally used for long haul networks or a dense BAN. BAN is building access network. So for a dense BAN. So generally if you have a lot of buildings, lot of towers, and you want to give all of them internet service through an MDU which is not connected to a splitter directly to a 2.5 gig port, then you can go for a chassis based OLT. But when your network is fairly distributed, it's not dense, there is a low user density, then you go for a standalone OLT at that point of time. Okay, so let's see what is a standalone OLT. So I've taken this OLT of Netlink. Okay, this is a standalone GPON OLT. As you can see on the right side where I have put it in purple, there are 8 uplinks of 1 gigs, which is 10, 100,000 base T, and 4 of them are also 10 gig copper ports. If you know that nowadays even 10 gig can be served on copper on Cat7 cable. Okay, so the 4 of them are 10 gig copper. These 2 ports that you see on the extreme right side are for the management. So you need to manage this equipment remotely. So you have management port, and these ports marked in green are the PON ports. Please understand, PON ports are not similar to Ethernet ports because they are taking the Ethernet and they are encapsulating it further. Each PON ports can be connected to a splitter that can split this port to either 32 or 64 based on the laser category, class B or class C. Okay, so in this particular case, you have 16 PON ports, each port having 64 users. So you can have a total of 1024 users in all. Okay. Now 1024 what? 1024 ONU. If you are going for MDU, and this is where I'm coming back to Kinner sir's question, when you talk about ONU, you are not expecting a 2.5 gig bandwidth at your end. But when you talk about a MDU, then this is a kind of an active splitting that you are doing. So you are taking one 2.5 gig port, terminating to an MDU or multi-dwelling unit, not a passive splitter over here. And these 2.5 gig ports can be as per you distributed into different Ethernet ports that you are supposed to distribute it to. You can distribute it in 25 100 gig ports, or you can also have 25 gig ports where you can do a kind of QoS provisioning, because you are able to now distribute in an active fashion in an MDU. So all in all, this OLT is a standalone OLT, and this has 16 PON ports, and this can have a total from an ONU perspective 1024 ONU. Let's go to the next slide. This is a chassis based OLT. As you can see, it is bigger, it is denser, and each of these module has 16 PON ports. So you can see the number of users that you can increase is much higher in this chassis based OLT. Chassis based OLTs have uplinks of 1 gig, they can have uplinks of 10 gig, they can have uplinks even of 100 gig these days. So you have a 100 gig uplink, you have several 100 gig uplinks going to content providers, and you have several users connected to this chassis based line. Now understand, if you are using a chassis based OLT as a dense FTTH configuration, then each of these port, if you can see my mouse, each of these small ports of the 16 can carry to 64 ONUs, which means each line, each blade is having, just a minute please, let me see pointer options, laser pointer. Okay, can you see my pointer? Is it visible?
Yes, your cursor was also visible. Pointer is also both visible.
Okay, fine. So each of these port is going to 64 ONUs, or one port can go to one MDU. So one port can go to one multi-dwelling unit, and they can go to many places, or one port can go through a feeder network to several ONUs. But each port is 64 ONUs, and like this, if you have 16 ports, so each of these blade is catering to how many users? 1024 users. Which means if I have 10 such blades, I can cater to 10K users, which is 10 multiplied by 1024. It is 10K. We call it 1K is 1024. We call it 10K users can be taken care of. Also, the uplinks can be in order of 100 gig, 10 gig, and 1 gig. So you have the standalone OLT, which can be used in when the network or the metro network is fairly distributed and user density is low. JioFiber is using standalone OLTs in a large scale, and you can have chassis based OLTs where you have a very dense area. Say I want to provide internet to all the houses, or all the houses as an FTTH in Godrej Gardens cities, which has got say 10,000 flats, or say not 10,000 flats, or say 2,000 flats, or say 5,000 flats in that area basically. Then I can have one particular location having this chassis based OLT, and then I can have my feeder network across and provide this internet as FTTH or services as FTTH to several houses that are densely packed in an area. But keep this thing in mind, the reach of the GPON cannot be more than 20 kilometers. So the choice of chassis based OLT or standalone OLT is depending on what is the density of users in that 20-kilometer radius. If you have more density of users, like if you decide that I want to give fiber to each and every house in a pod, then you can go for a chassis based OLT. So there the users are more, distance are less. But if you want to do it, say in an area like Satyagraha Chhauni, where the row houses are more but the area is more wide, you have to go for a standalone OLT, because you have to have the metro network more distributed in shape. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now let's dissect the ONU. Okay, now I have taken an ONU of Netlink. As you can see, in this ONU, you have 4 ports of 10, 100,000 base T. Now, this is very important to know what is 10, 100,000 base T. Why we call it base T? T stands for transformability. So, this particular port can connect to a 10 Mbps Ethernet port also, can connect to a 100 Mbps Ethernet port also, and can connect to a 1000 Mbps Ethernet port also, depending on what the receiver port is configured to. In Ethernet, there is a thing called auto negotiation. So if your laptop is generally a 100 Mbps port, it will negotiate only 100 Mbps with this. However, if it is not a 100 Mbps port, say it is 1000 Mbps port, it is going to negotiate 1000 Mbps. The speed 100 Mbps or 1000 Mbps will also depend on the wire configuration that you have done in your RJ45 patch cords. If you are connecting only 4 wires, which is 1, 2, 3 and 6, then your speed is going to be only 100 Mbps. You cannot achieve 1000 Mbps from that. 1000 Mbps or 1 Gbps needs all 8 ports, all 8 wires to be connected in straight fashion, end to end, where you will see 1000 Mbps coming in. Also, please note, 1000 Mbps begins from a category of cable called as Cat5e or Cat6. So Cat5e and Cat6 can provide you 1000 Mbps. Cat5, which is blue in color and has only 4 wires inside it, cannot provide you 1000 Mbps. Okay, so these are some of the very minute points that you need to take care. When you are asked that, for 1000 Mbps, can I use the blue Cat5 cable? The answer is no, you cannot, because it has got only 4 wires inside it. But for Cat, if you want to give 1000 Mbps, then you have to use the Cat6 or the Cat5e, which has got 8 wires that can be crimped to an RJ45 port. The green arrow that you see over here is connected to a USB port for backup mobile connection. Sometimes what happens that there is a fiber cut or there's a fiber failure. So the operator over here provides you an option of connecting a mobile dongle also, so that if this network has failed, the PON port has failed, your internet is routed through the USB mobile dongle, so that your internet service is always up and it is unlimited. Then you can see 2 RJ11 connectors. These are connected to the analog phone. Now, not all people in residences will have the privilege to have an IP phone. Most of the time, landline phones are analog. Those push button phone connected with a thin wire of RJ11 with a 1 pair cable. Now these ports are for that. Now generally what happens, an analog signal over here is converted to the SIP protocol in the ONT. Please understand, configuring an analog phone is very different from configuring internet and IP phone in an ONT. If you want to configure an IP phone in the ONT or internet phone in the ONT, it is very simple. You can just drop the VLAN and it is done. But if you want to configure an analog phone, which is the regular phone, dial karne wala phone or push phone that you have, that configuration is a bit difficult. So there are SIP parameters in the ONT. You have to configure the number of the phone in the SIP parameters in the ONT so that that is being communicated to the exchange that you're connected to through the OLT through the SBC. So therefore, what is happening in analog phone, the analog voice is being converted to SIP first in the ONT. The SIP signal is sent through an IP network of the GPON to the SBC. The SBC sends it to the exchange, which terminates it to a PSTN gateway, which is plain switch telephone gateway, and that goes to the voice switch. So therefore, you have analog connectivity, you have digital phone connectivity, which you can connect over here. You have Wi-Fi over this thing. The Wi-Fi can be 802.11b, G, N, and ACLR. Basically, B and G are now not used anymore. They are used as a fallback. Mostly all protocols are now 802.11n that can go up to 100 Mbps, and you have another standard called as ACLR, which can take the Wi-Fi to also 300 Mbps. The GeoFiber box that you are getting in your homes, fiber to the home, is a ONU with 802.11 ACLR. So it has all the capabilities. So you can actually expect 300 Mbps on your wireless on an ACLR network. Of course, as you go away from the Wi-Fi network, as your strength goes down, your speed also goes down. This is normal physics. This has got nothing to do with telecom, but this is normal physics that, as your attenuation is more on the wireless, your speed and your bandwidth is going to drop. Let's go to the next slide. Multi-dwelling unit. This is a very simple kind of multi-dwelling unit where you have one GPON port coming in and you have 24 access ports over here. This you can put in a building. You can take one GPON port from the OLT and you can distribute copper across 24 users. Multi-dwelling unit can be also used for a cable operator, and generally most of the cable operators use this these days, because what used to happen, if you recall, in year 2000 or year 2004, I don't know if I have to refer that to you, but year 2004 the number of channels are less, but today the number of channels are very, very high. A particular scheme of Tata Sky, the largest scheme of Tata Sky may have 900 channels. Not that Tata Sky is using MDU, but I'm just trying to say that there are in all at any point of time 900 channels operational in the CATV network. Therefore, in order to distribute that kind of traffic, you need a full 2.5 gig port coming in, or a 10 gig port also at times, which I will tell you later about 10 GPON coming in as a multicast input to the MDU, and then from the coax going to all the places, and they're terminating in a set-top box. So MDUs are used by ISPs when they want to have economical deployment of internet, or they are also used by CATV provider when they want to distribute at some point. Please note, MDU is not placed at a customer premise, so it needs to be placed at a particular premise that is either rented by the provider, or in some other ways it has got a collaboration, it has got uninterrupted supply of power. So MDU locations are generally put in a have quite amount of space. You can have a UPS over there which can give you a backup of say 4 hours or 8 hours on the MDU, so that even if there is a power failure, at least there is not a loss of signal to the user, so you can access your internet as much as you want using this. So this is one thing that you need to know about MDU. Now let us talk about quality of service, QoS. Now understand what is the basis of QoS. Now the basis of QoS can be two things. Okay, if I am having an FTTH network, I am sure that the maximum bandwidth I am having at my premise is 75 Mbps, and in this 75 Mbps, I want to have a clear-cut differentiation of bandwidth and priorities among the services. So I have say voice service, I have say internet service, I have CATV service, I have Android TV content or streamed content. So I want to do a clear-cut bifurcation, say in these 4 kinds of services. Now understand that you are on a phone call with somebody, a voice call. You require a fixed kind of bandwidth. You know, whether you shout on the phone or whether you stay silent on the phone, you require 64 kbps of bandwidth. And if it is a high definition voice, you require 100 kbps of bandwidth. Okay. Now this bandwidth requirement is fixed. But on the other side, in the same network, somebody is also surfing the internet. Now he may at times do some web browsing, so he may take low bandwidth, but he may at times play a YouTube video on 4K, which may need very high bandwidth. And at the same time, when you are also talking on the phone, and if your voice and his data is equally prioritized, then his data may breach over your voice packets and your voice packets may drop, which means you will have a call drop issue, which is not desirable. Or say he is watching YouTube and somebody is watching TV on the CATV, and he suddenly gets a burst of bandwidth which is highly prioritized, eating up the bandwidth of the TV. So you will have a tear in the picture of TV, or you will have interrupted services on your TV. In that case, what you have to do, you have to prioritize. That you have to give a kind of a command to the ONU saying that, okay, if there is a congestion, then take bandwidth away from the internet user. Do not take bandwidth away from the voice, or do not take bandwidth away from the TV. This is called as class of service, or prioritization of service. Then this can be also user related. Like I said, that this is service related over here, that you do not want to give internet a higher priority over voice, or TV a higher priority over voice. You can also do this as user related. When do you use it as user related? Say, example, you have one building, and say you have 24 users in that building, 25 users in that building. All are sharing a 2.5 Gbps port, but few users are paying you higher. So say there is a user A, B, C, D who is paying you say 1,000 rupees a month, and there is few users like E, F, G, H who is giving you 500 rupees a month. Therefore, the committed bandwidth of A, B, C, D will be definitely higher than E, F, G, H. Which means what? That in this entire 2.5 gig bandwidth, the access bandwidth distribution is going to be unequal. And also, it is going to be highly prioritized, which means that A, B, C, D, in case of a congestion in the network, they would get first preference of getting the service than EFGH, or the committed bandwidth of ABCD would be say 100 Mbps and EFGH would be say 50 Mbps. Now, if ABCD are not using their bandwidth, then EFGH can get extra bandwidth at their share. But the moment ABCD will start bandwidth or using their bandwidth, at that point of time, these 4 users which are lowly classified will only get the bandwidth they are committed to. So that is why, in many internet advertisement, you get this figure called up to 2 Mbps or up to 100 Mbps. This figure, this phrase of up to is very important to know. Up to 100 Mbps does not mean 100 Mbps. It means that you have got 100 Mbps, which is a shared bandwidth across like 8 users. Now, if 7 users are not using, you will get 100 Mbps. But if say 4 users are using, you may not get 100 Mbps, you will get only 25 Mbps. So please understand, whenever you are buying a internet broadband plan, there is something called as a concurrence ratio and there is something called as a contention ratio. The contention ratio is actually defining your committed information rate, or this is the bandwidth that you're committed to. No internet service provider will disclose that to you, because that will kill their own business. They will tell you 100 Mbps, 100 Mbps, 100 Mbps. Now you imagine, they have told you 100 Mbps, they have told 10 neighbors 100 Mbps, maybe 50 neighbors 100 Mbps. From where are they getting this 5 Gbps of traffic? Because 50 multiplied by 100 is 5,000. And you do not have a port that can give like 5 Gbps of traffic in that kind of a revenue scenario. So what is happening? This is the same 300 Mbps or 500 Mbps that is distributed among 50 users, considering the fact that not everybody is going to use the internet in the same way at the same time. Like now I am doing this conference, I am using high bandwidth. Now I may be using up some share of bandwidth of some other user who is not able to get this bandwidth. Or rather, if he is highly prioritized by me, if he starts pumping his bandwidth, I may be also dropped off, or my quality may also go down. That is the principle of QoS that we use. And why we use this principle is very important. You must have studied TCP/IP. In TCP/IP, what it is said that the service rate is never dropped. It is always reduced. The quality is always reduced. So say if suddenly I get a lower bandwidth, then the quality of service will go down. You will have a blur picture. You will have cracked voice, and you will have a kind of a interruption in a real-time service. But if you are browsing the internet, or if you are browsing the YouTube, which is a static content, you will not even have that. You will have a reduction in the quality of the picture. How is it determined? It is determined by the sliding window protocol of TCP/IP. So when the bandwidth is very high, I may have a higher window size or a wider window size. So for 10,000 packets, I need 1 acknowledgement. But when the bandwidth is very low, it is jittery, my window size will narrow down. Then I will need to have acknowledgement for every 5 packets or 6 packets. So therefore, that is the reason why when you are seeing your internet on speedtest.net or thing, you will see that the figure of download gradually goes up. Even if you have a full-fledged 10 Gbps line, you will not get 10 Gbps on instance 1. The bandwidth will build up because the sliding window protocol is checking the line it is determining that, how to widen my window and how to go up. And that is why you will see a gradual flow of internet. So just running through the next slides. Components of QoS. First is class. As I told you, what is the priority of service? Higher the priority, better is the reliability. Then it is the meter or the policer. How much bandwidth to be committed in what class? So this has two parts. One is the CIR, which is committed information rate. This is the part of the bandwidth that is guaranteed. And then it has EIR, it is extra information rate. This is only provided if the other parts are not using their CIR. So this is the shared bandwidth. Then it is scheduling. Scheduling means which to send first. So if this ONU or any switch is a kind of a packet where the packet forwarder, where the packets are sent sequentially. So which is the packet that gets higher priority? A packet that has got higher class or the higher CIR, higher class gets the higher priority. Then the last and the most important part is drop algorithm. In case of a congestion, what I should drop? Should I drop the voice service? No. I should let the high class services go through. I should let the high class users go through, and I will only have to drop the packets of the low class services or low class users. Is this clear to all of you? Class, meter, scheduling, and drop algorithm. This is very important when you are talking about quality of service. Quality of service is based on these four parts. Also, you can remember this in 4 parts. Okay. So whenever you talk about quality of service, you have to understand first. You have to ask a question. What will give you the answer of what to let go and what not to let go? So that is your class. Then it talks about how much. Class is answered by what, how much. So how much of what class should be let go? That is your CIR and that is your EIR. How much of bandwidth you should give to each class. Then how, which is to be sent first, which is to be sent next, is answered by scheduling. Higher class services will go first, lower class services will be at the end of the queue. And then the most important question, what not? So what, how much, how, and what not. What not will answer that in case of congestion, what you need to drop, what not to send in case of congestion. This is the component of QoS. And I'm telling you, this is the only complicated part in every telecommunication provisioning that you will do in all your life. Whether it is the Metro Ethernet, whether it is the routed network, whether it is the GPON network, whether it is the fixed access, whether it is the wireless network, this particular part of QoS is the most complicated part that you will come across in telecom all across your life. If you are there in telecom, that is, and I hope so you are there in telecom. Let's go to the next slide. So I have given an example how a 25 Mbps user is divided. Now here you will see there is a control bandwidth. Control bandwidth is the bandwidth that takes care of the protocol controls, like OSPF or IP protocols have some control signals. Now that has to be given at the highest priority, which I give at COS 7. COS 7 means highest class of service number 7. Generally, there are 8 classes of service: COS 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why? Because in the VLAN bit or in the Ethernet frame, the priority code point consists of 3 bits. Now, if you do 2 raised to 3, it is 8. So you can have 8 classes of service starting from COS 0 to COS 7. So I put the control bandwidth management as at COS 7 with a CIR of 1 Mbps with the committed information rate of 1 Mbps. So at any point of time, this bandwidth is going to be up all the time. Voice, I put voice at COS 6 with a CIR of 1 Mbps. Why 1 Mbps? because I feel that I can also be involved in a 10-party conference where I will have 10 SIP lines coming in and terminating, each having 100 kbps. 100 kbps multiplied by 10 is 1000 kbps, and that is 1 mbps. Okay, so I put voice at cos 6, CIR of 1 mbps. Please note, I have not put any EIR in cos 7 and cos 6. Then I put IPTV management at cos 3 at a lower class with a higher CIR and an EIR of 3 mbps. What I do, I put an EIR of 3. What does it mean? That if these two, or even if this is not using, this IPTV can go up to 10 mbps, so that I can watch HD channels at 7 mbps, but wherever I want to watch 4K channels, I can watch them at 10 mbps also. Okay, and I put internet and OTT at a CIR of 10 mbps and an EIR of 15 mbps. Please note something, the summation of this CIR, 1 plus 1 plus 7, 9 plus 10 is 19, is less than 25 mbps. I can put a higher CIR over here or here, but the summation of the CIR and EIR of the last cost is always equivalent to the maximum bandwidth that I can give to this particular user. And this is how the bandwidth is shaped. So here you can see that if the user is not watching television, it is not doing voice, the bandwidth can go up to 25 mbps. But this 25 mbps, it will only reach if the control budget is also not utilized. But the moment this guy starts using its 1 mbps, his speed will fall to 24 mbps. When this guy uses 1 mbps, his speed will fall to 23 mbps. So 25 minus 2. When this guy starts using its 7 mbps, this will fall to 25 minus 2, 23 minus 7, 16 mbps. And when he starts using also 4K, he will see a 3 mbps drop more. So therefore, this is how you can plan it. Also, when there will be a congestion over here, so there is a fiber band due to which bandwidth is not going through, the first priority is going to be given to these two lines only, not to the internet. The internet speed will become lower based on the class of service. Same way, where do we use service-based QoS? As you can see, we use it in mostly ONU kind of networks where there are different services but one user and a maximum bandwidth ratio. These are very popular in real residential estate in rich areas. For example, you know, Sahara City, they have got ONU network, FTTH network with multiple services. Luxurious estates, they have this because there is an affordability towards such services that have to be acknowledged. Then you have user-based QoS. As you can see that, you know, this is a 1-PON split of 1:8 coming to an MDU. And from this MDU, you are getting total 30 users, each having a CIR of 10 mbps. So see, the total downstream bandwidth is 300 mbps. I have divided across 30 users, each having a committed information rate of 10 mbps, but an extra information rate of 90 mbps. See, I am telling them up to 100 mbps to all of you, up to 100 mbps. But how is that up to being managed? This 300 mbps is being shared among 30 users, giving them 10. So if 10 users are grouped in one group, and if 9 of them are not using their bandwidth, then one particular user has the potential to go as high as up to 100 mbps over here. Here he can connect to wired internet, OTT, gaming and mobile, Wi-Fi, anything. But his cumulative bandwidth over here has a potential to go up to 100 mbps. Here also we can give different class of services to different users. Like, you know, this user is paying more. give him a higher class of service. This user is paying less, give him a lower class of service, and something like that. Is it clear? So this is actually how you are getting high-speed internet at your home. You will wonder that how is everyone being committed 100 Mbps? They are not committed 100 Mbps. They are being said up to 100 Mbps. This up to is a very key message, and how we manage this up to in the backend is like this. Okay, so summarizing now, we are coming to the end of the presentation. The flavors of FTTX, as you can see, fiber to the node, FTTN. This is provided where the revenue is very, very poor and there are high amount of users. Rural areas, suburban area, talukas, districts, you will have FTTN. FTTC, fiber to the curb, where the city is flat architecture. You know, areas like Navrangpura, areas like Naranpura, where you have more row houses, tenements, but low paying users. You use FTTC, you have one particular point where you have the MDU and you can bring the fiber to the curb. Here you see the optical fiber length is differing in each of the cases. Okay, this is differing in each of the cases. Then you have FTTB, fiber to the building. Now in a city that is definitely growing vertically, like Mumbai, where tenements are very less but high-rise towers are more, there you can have MDUs, fiber brought to each and every building, and then you can lay copper. And then finally you have FTTH, where there is very high revenue potential, low to medium number of users, and spread of individual bungalows. For example, places where the revenue potential is very, very high, pockets are deep, people can afford to give 3,000 rupees a month or 5,000 rupees a month for multiple service. There you are using FTTH. By the way, if you are going abroad, like Germany, like UK, you have FTTH, but the cost of internet is very, very high. For example, I will give you, I am paying 100 Mbps, I am paying for 100 Mbps unlimited bandwidth download internet in Mumbai at my home, an amount of 5,648 in 1 year, in 1 full year. The same if they want to get at their home on fiber with different services, you have to pay this amount per month. So the cost is 12 times higher than what you are paying now. Same way, even I think this is the case in Ahmedabad, players like GTPL, players like, what was the other name? Okay, whatever, Meghdoot. There is one player called Meghdoot. So there in eastern side, there is Alliance Broadband. In southern side, there is ACT. In northern side, there is Hathway and Den. In Bombay also, there is Hathway, Den, and Microscan. So there are various companies doing this in India. Probably FTTH and GPON in different flavors has the most diverse opportunity that you have got in telecom in India, because everybody is doing it. Jio is also doing it, Airtel is also doing it, Hathway is also doing it, Den is also doing it, SL Utilities is also doing this. So there are many players in this, but the revenue also is divided. It is not the same all across. It is not high. So you have like 3 mobile operators or 4 mobile operators in India, but you may have 4,000 operators as an ISP in class A, class B, and class C kind, providing different flavors of FTTB or FTTC or FTTN or FTTH to you. Let's go to the next part. Now let's understand how GPON is evolving as a single channel product. So there are 2 variants of GPON. One is single channel and one is WDM channel. So we started with GPON, which is generally given to residential and enterprise services of low order having a downstream of 2.5 Gbps and upstream of 1.25 Gbps. This is evolving to XGPON, which is having a downstream of 10 Gbps, okay, and upstream of 2.5 Gbps. This is generally used in residential and enterprise services of the higher order. Can be also used in high-rise FTTB, where MDU is taking an input of direct 10 Gbps rather than taking an input of 2.5 Gbps or 300 Mbps. So it can be used over there as well, and higher order IoT. So Internet of Things, connecting many devices together, many device access points together, XGPON is used. Then you have XGS-PON. What is S standing for? S standing for symmetric. Generally, I told you, GPON is asymmetric. The downstream and upstream bandwidth is not the same. But you can also have GPON in a XGS-PON format, where the downstream is 10 Mbps and upstream is 10 Mbps, and this are preliminary use as a 4G LTE a 4G LTE front haul. Why 4G LTE front haul? Because not all the sites in 4G LTE, because when you look at 3G, when you look at 2G, if you wanted to give 2G coverage, you would need say 100 sites. If you want to give 3G coverage, you would need 400 sites. If you want to give LTE coverage, you may need 1600 sites. So as the generation and the speed increases of the mobile broadband, the number of access points or the number of cell sites will also increase. So you will also have something called as small cells, or small cells as in one particular centralized tower catering to front hauling many more remote unit towers. In that case, you will have XGS-PON. Then you have something called as 25G-PON. This has downstream of 25 Gbps and upstream of 10 Gbps. Now here it is very important to note about two interesting interfaces that are there in the mobile world. The first interface is called as CPRI, which is Common Public Radio Interface. This looks like an Ethernet interface, just like PON looks like an Ethernet interface, but this is not an Ethernet interface. This is a 10 gig radio encrypted Ethernet interface called as CPRI. And then you have something called as eCPRI, which is Enhanced Common Public Radio Interface, which has a downstream of 25 Gbps. Now the 25G PON is having a eCPRI asymmetric interface where you can do advanced LTE backhaul, which is a bit higher than 4G, but bit lower than 5G. Okay, so the uplink is limited, but the downstream is 25 Gbps in that. This is also used in case of front haul. Understand, there is something called as backhaul and there is something called a front haul. Front haul is when you are catering several small sites to one centralized BTS site, and I think this can be covered in detail when we are I hope we have a session on LTE, 5G and so on. Then you have the last evolution path, which is the 25GS PON. This is for the front haul with NR. What is NR? 5G front haul with NR. NR stands for new radio. It's a very simple acronym. It stands for new radio. Okay. Now, in the case of 2G applications in mobile, you had a term called as BTS. BTS stands for base transceiver station. It is nothing but the tower that you see is BTS. The same tower, when you went to 3G, became Node B. Node B is actually a cell site that is catering to 3G traffic. The same Node B, when you go to a bit higher on the 4G, becomes eNode B, which is called as enhanced Node B, which has the capability of giving 1G or 10G wireless access and can have a network of macrosites and microsites. This is called as E-node B, which is generally a term used in 4G and LTE. And then in 5G these days, with the 3GPP release of 2018, you have something called as G-node B, which is gateway node B, and gateway node B, or somebody call it also generic node B, which is using the new NR, or the new radio, which is an arrayed gateway radio. Okay, these are, on the more higher aspect, but if you even tell these terms in your interview, it will be really great. The guy in front of you, or the girl in front of you, will come to know that नहीं, इनको मालूम है हो क्या रहा है टेलीकॉम में, मोबाइल एस्पेक्ट में और फिक्स लाइन एस्पेक्ट में. हालांकि ये that's another story कि ये हो भी रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है अभी. Then I'm just having two more slides of the WDM PON. You can also introduce a wavelength division multiplexing in the PON network. You can have several PON port combined to different wavelength channels going to a AWG router. This is arrayed waveguide router. This is an arrayed waveguide grating router. And here you can split different PON of 2.5 gig. Kinnar sir, please see it clearly. This is where you are taking 2.5 gig and splitting it to different 2.5 gig but on different channels. Now this 2.5 gig is going to a splitter network and splitting further. So when you want to do an aggregation of several PON networks in different channels, you can actually write it on a wavelength. You can converge it to an AWG router, and then you can bring it to the OLT. So you can have several 2.5 gig ports on several channels combined on one fiber, going through an arrayed waveguide grating router. From the arrayed waveguide grating router, you have a split of channels, each channel carrying 2.5 gigs or 10 gigs. 2.5 gigs, 10 gigs, depends. You want XGPON or pure GPON, and this further splits into ONUs. Please note, the WDM PON is very widely used in the 4G front haul that you are seeing. Jio uses it very widely. Many international operators like Verizon, AT&T, Singtel, they are using this WDM PON very efficiently in their network. Okay, now the 5G front haul. Now I've just taken this slide to explain you what is 5G rather than what is WDM PON over here. If you see the wireless of 5G, it is divided into three parts: CU, DU, and RRU. CU is central unit, DU is called as distribution unit, and RRU is called as remote unit. Okay. Now, generally in 3G and in 4G, the CU, DU are over here in the core. So all the traffic from the RU needs to go to the core. But in 5G, you can disaggregate this network, disaggregate the RAN. You have a disaggregated RAN where you can put CU in the core, DU in the front haul access, and RRU in the front haul. In 2G, by the way, the RU, DU, and CU are both in the BTS. Okay, so in 5G, you are seeing a more distributed architecture, and this part that connects the DU to the RRU is called as the front haul. Now, anything beyond that can be called as mid and back haul. So this is called as the front haul. And in this particular case, you will see a very efficient use of WDM PON and generally the 25GS PON, because in 5G you have the EC-PRI interface that can take 25 Gbps of traffic in and out. So each and every channel from here is giving out 25 Gbps, which are terminating to an EC-PRI and aggregating over here. Okay. So let us understand the GPON in Indian market. First of all, mostly it is MDU based deployment. It is you have very rarely got FTTH in India because you have urban areas having dense pocket demanding broadband that is cheap. We do not want to pay more. We want cheap broadband, but we want high broadband. And that is why MDU based deployment is very rampant in these places. 4G front haul. Many 4G companies are using WDM PON or even simple XG PON for their 4G front hauling. Luxury estates, something like Sahara City or those places, DLF Golf Greens, Hiranandani Estate in Mumbai, or Palacia Royal in downtown Mumbai, or probably Mukesh Ambani's house itself. They are having FTTH or fiber to the home or fiber to the apartment, where you can have several services or quad play services with a varied QoS, and you can have, by the way, a revenue share from the several content service providers. Generally, what happens, see, sorry, an FTTH provider has to take revenue from both sides. He has to take money from the user on the infrastructure and on the service, but he also takes money from the content provider, because he is giving them an access to so many users at an unlimited speed. So the content provider also share a part of revenue with them. Like, he will get money from the cable provider, from the phone company, from the internet provider, and things like that. So in case of FTTH, generally the revenue model is take money from the user and take money from the provider as well. This FTTH provider is a middleman doing all the job. He is doing the maintenance of the feeder network, he is doing the maintenance of the active electronics, the provisioning of the service, and so on. CATV and IPTV, cable TV, which is now based, which is no more analog these days. It is digital, but it is based on GPON, it is based on MDU, and it is coming to home. You can have a managed content delivery in FTTH scenario, but this is very few. It's not there in India anymore, and IPTV has really not picked up in India, and it will not pick up because now you have got a thing called OTT. Nowadays, watching television is going down, because when you watch managed content on television, you have to watch the programs at their time. But nowadays, you have options of live television also on the web, where you can watch live matches and all that, and you can watch programs at your convenient time. This is called OTT, or over the top, where you are watching the programs on the internet itself, like Amazon Prime, like Netflix, like Z5, like Hotstar. These are OTT applications that you use, and most of the people are using that, because here you can watch on your mobile, you can watch on your Android television, you can watch on your you can screen mirror it to your TV and things like that. And so, wrapping it up, last mile access generally uses passive optical network where there are no protocols. Understand, there are no protocols involved, only encapsulation. GPON is only encapsulation. Okay, widely used for residential broadband deployment in various capacities, has a good evolution path. This is not a dead technology. this is evolving. Just like the wireless is evolving, even the wireline is evolving. Can be used in several applications apart from just giving broadband. You can use it in 4G fronthaul, you can use it in 5G fronthaul, you can have a WDM application on it. In fact, so this is not a dying technology like SDH or TDM is a dying technology. Fronthaul access or last mile access on wireline is not a dying technology. And if you want to subscribe to good magazines over here, please subscribe to this magazine. I will also give the contact number of the owner of this magazine or owner of this forum to Kinnar sir once we are done, so that if he wants, he can contact the owner. I will also talk to the owner, so then he can, whenever he's in Ahmedabad, he can come and enlighten you more about the business part of it, how business is going on. And that's it. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience. Any questions, please? I am all ears to answer them.
There was 2 questions from Parmar sir.
Yes, sir. I am all ears. Yes, sir. I am there.
Yeah, it is there in chat.
It's there in chat. Okay. I'll just see that. Okay. What is acceptable bit error rate in FTTX? How do we measure it? Bit error rate in FTTX. See, most of the packet is Ethernet encapsulated. There are 3 levels. The regular bit error is 10⁻⁻⁶, which will cause a degradation. And the excessive error is 10⁻⁻3. So 1 packet in 1,000 is an excessive error. 1 packet in a million is a degradation. Generally, the BER is kept higher than 10⁻⁻⁶. 10⁻⁻⁶. Okay. Is the range limit of 20 km a link budget issue? Not only a link budget issue, but also a split issue. You are right, because the GPON, see, if we do the splitting on a logarithmic scale on the power, then the GPON class C SFP will give you a power of +4 dB. Now, if you split this +4 dB on a logarithmic scale on, say, 64 splits, then and considering the attenuation that you have in G652 fiber, which is around 0.3 dB per kilometer. So let's do like this. For 20 kilometers, 0.3 dB per kilometer, 0.3 into 20 is 6 dB. Okay, so 6 dB gone. So +4 -6 is -2. Now this -2 is now split across 64 split ratio. So finally, what you will get is power which will be, say, of -18 or -16, beyond which the ONU will not able to process your optical signal. I hope I have answered you, sir. Welcome, sir. You're most welcome. It is always great to, there was a time where I used to flood you with my questions, and it's always a deep honor. It's always a deep honor. And probably having these sessions after so many years of being in telecom, and having it with the people who have taught me how to be an electronic engineer, how to be a communication engineer, is so fulfilling. I last week I was talking to my dad, and I told him, Dad, I'm having this session with my college. He said that you should have it more regularly, because this is the only way you can repay them back. Otherwise, there is no other way you can repay them back. If you can even make the life of one student from this audience of say 23 or 100 fulfilling, so that he or she gets into this industry and shines over here. My work is done. Then I feel when my work is done. All right, if there are any more questions, I'm ready to take them. And if there are none, then I suggest, I hope. There are a lot of people whom I think I know. Is Jay Bhuptani the son of Bhuptani, sir?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And we have students from Ahmedabad, Rajkot, all places, right?
Yeah, we have
Ahmedabad,
industrialist as well.
Oh my God.
Akshay Shah is from our community.
Wow. That's great. So
Yeah, Kalyan, it was an excellent session by you today.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
We took half an hour more. Actually, we had scheduled it.
Right. I apologize for that, because I
No
wanted to
need to
cover all the.
apologize. We were actually very much interested, and consistently, average presence were around 30 candidates were there. So it
That's
was
great.
very, very informative and very well planned session. It was.
Thank you
I
so
would
much,
like-
Mr. Bhavesh.
Yeah, this you have prepared in an excellent way and delivered very nice talk.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Very
Sir.
good,
Thank you,
Kalyan.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Attend in between 15 to 20 minutes while traveling from home to office. But anyway, it's
No
a
problem,
good
sir.
lecture. As
Thank you
usual.
so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you so
information.
much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
We would like Kiran sir say something.
Yes,
Yes,
Kiran
yes.
sir. Kiran sir is there.
Yes, he's there. He's there in the call. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I saw him in the call.
Yeah, in morning he is there.
Yeah, he's
Nah,
there. He's there in the call. We'll just have to unmute him once, maybe. Yeah,
Yes,
he's
hello,
on.
hello.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Hello.
It is always a pleasure to learn from our students, and especially Kalyan is the only student who is hardcore communication engineer.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
All other
Thank you so
students, either they are working in software industry or writing programs for maybe electronics industry, but pure communication, hardcore communication is only Kalyan. As far as I know, the students who are working in various areas.
Thank you so much, sir.
I interacted with him last week also. We had a long discussion, probably more than 1 hour's discussion on technology areas.
Yes.
And it is always nice to interact with Kalyan in any form, either point-to-point communication or broadcast communication.
Both way, it is really good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all for
Thank you so
attending
much.
the session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Thank you
okay.
so much. Thank you so much.
See you again soon.
See you, sir. See you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. How to leave the meeting? Here it is.